Hi everyone, welcome to Floating in Books. My name is Maaike, and yes, I'm back, and I'm back with a vengeance because I've got a book haul for you. So welcome back everybody. Thank you so very much to everyone who's stuck around and who's still subscribed to this channel. This channel hasn't really had a lot of content uploaded. I think it's been almost a year and a half since I last posted a video. I just wasn't reading a whole lot, so I couldn't really post anything on here, but I thought I still wanted to revive this channel and sort of talk about books again, but also about some other things. So I want to rebrand this channel into more of a lifestyle sort of channel, you could say, where I will have some room for like anything that's not beauty related is going to go onto this channel. So my main channel, which I have still been posting on all this time, is just going to be all the makeup and beauty related content. And then on here, I want to do things like vlogs, talk about books, talk about music I listen to, TV shows I watch. But also, for instance, do some fashion videos. I love doing fashion videos, but they don't do very well over my other channel. And I feel they kind of take away from what that channel has to offer, and not everybody on there is following me for my fashion content, but I still wanted to go somewhere. So the concept right now is to do one video a week on here. I have a lot of bookish content to catch you up on, so that's what we're going to be doing this month. And I'm also, by the time as I'm filming this, I'm about to be going on a trip to London, so I hope to be able to vlog that trip for you and then post that later this month as well. And I just want to try and have some topics running. I want to do wrap-ups again. I want to do some other things as well, but it's not just going to be books anymore. But I also want to do some other things. So I still want to share some things on this channel, but I'm not sure how regular it's going to be. For now, the aim is going to be once a week, but we'll see whether that's going to be anything I want to do. That's why I'm sort of pre-filming a lot for this channel. That's definitely what's going to happen here. And yeah, I thought that what better way to come back to this channel than with a book haul, because it's not as if I haven't been buying any books, but in contrast with other years where I've shown like a year of book buying, there are actually quite a few books here that I've actually read. So I'm very proud of that. But there's also a lot here that I haven't read. So yeah, I'm looking at the stack right here sitting next to me on the on my couch. And the reason why I'm not filming in front of my bookcases right now is because I renovated my kitchen and bathroom. That video should go live on my main channel sometime this month as well. So if you want to watch that, then you can see that. But it just gives me less space to sort of, like, I can still get to the bookcases, but I now have some plans stuck in front of it, so I can't really set up a tripod there. So I thought we could just have casual chats on my couch like I normally do with beauty videos. Just, you know, just have a grand old time. So let me get to the books I was buying. This is going to be completely random order, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I picked these up over time. I took pictures to show friends what I had bought, which is why I still remember what I actually bought. And most of this I picked up in bookstores and not online. I think because of, you know, being stuck at home so much, it was nice if I went out and the stores were open that I could go to the bookstore and grab a book. So I'm going to show you what I'm currently reading, and that is Sally Rooney's Beautiful World, Where Are You? So I'm about a third of the, no, like a little bit of the way in, like that's where the bookmark is. So I've made a start. I feel like the story is about to like get going. We've now been introduced to the main characters. So far, I find the writing style a little off-putting because it's very distant, but I'm not sure. This may be one I enjoy. I've liked 2 other Sally Rooney books in the past. I really enjoyed Conversation with Friends. I liked it better than Normal People, but I thought that was good too. So I thought I could read her latest, and I haven't really seen many reviews on this. I've been totally off the booktube train, so I haven't really seen anybody reviewing this or talking about it. I just saw a new Sally Rooney book at my bookstore, and I was like, I want to read that. Then I saw that Jade Kristoff had a new book out at my local bookstore. This is Empire of the Vampire. I love vampires, and I know he's a bit of a controversial author. A lot of people don't read him anymore because of some opinions that he's voiced on Twitter, I believe. I don't exactly know what's going on. I've tried looking it up, but I can't really find what happened. So if anybody knows, leave me a comment down below. But I've read his entire trilogy with Amy Kaufman, the what's it called? the Illuminae files, and I really like that. I'm currently in the midst of reading the Nevernight series. I actually read the first book a couple of years ago, and I didn't really pick it back up. So I've read God's Grave now, and the only thing that's left is Dark Dawn, and I'm really enjoying those books. So if he's going to write vampires, then I think I'm going to love it. So that's why I bought this one, but it's very chunky. Then we have Shuggie Bain from Douglas Stuart. So a friend of mine actually read this and said it was really, really good. It did also win the Booker Prize. Is it the Man Booker Prize? The Booker Prize. Was it? Okay, in 2020, I saw this on the table on my bookstore, at my bookstore so often that I was like, I think I might like this. Isn't it set in Ireland or Scotland? Like working class, really harrowing kind of story, with a lot of like actual regional accents in it, if I'm not mistaken. So I think I might like this. It's definitely more of a literary pick for me. Next up, we have A Clockwork River from J.S. Emery, and I don't remember what this is about at all. I was just hoping that this could be like fantasy, steampunky, a little bit of Victorian influence with like this like clockwork sort of thing on there. I think it's about life in a city along a river. I don't know what this is about. I just thought the cover was pretty, and that's why I picked it up. Now, these three books I picked up when I was at Waterstones in Amsterdam. I think this was like my first sort of like I'm going shopping in Amsterdam kind of trip after everything started happening. I hadn't been to Amsterdam in like 2 or 3 years. And I was like, I need to get myself to Waterstones. And then I found Robert Dinsdale's The Toy Makers, which is apparently sort of like magical realism kind of story, where there's like a toy emporium and it comes to life or something like that. I'm not entirely sure anymore. It's been like over a year since I picked it up. Like this is some of the first things I picked up in this batch. But it sounded intriguing when I read the blurb, so I wanted to try it. And then this is Faded, which is the first novel in an urban fantasy series by Benedict Jacka. Is that how you pronounce it? It just, the blurb really reminded me of Ben Aronovich's Rivers of London series, which is one of my favorite urban fantasy series for sure. I love me a good deal of urban fantasy, okay? So I thought this could be a nice one. I haven't read it yet, so we'll see. And then this also intrigued me. It's sort of like historical fiction meets James Bond. At least that's what I'm getting from the blurb. It's The Spider Dance from Nick Setchfield, I think that's his name, the author's name. It's a first book in a series again. It's sort of like a spy in the 60s, you know, Cold War. And I believe that that's what it is. So I like it. I like me a bit of like mystery in a historical setting. I love that. I love like detective stories set in historical settings. So this I thought could be a good one. And then I also picked up some Sarah J. Maas. I'm not sure whether I showed you the first book in this series in a haul. I should have. It didn't pop up in any of my pictures, that I took over the past year or so. But this is the second book in the Crescent City series from her. This is The House of Breath and Sky, or Sky and Breath. And I think it's like an urban fantasy story with vampires and fairies. That's what I remember for the first one. Some people love these. Some people seem to really, really greatly dislike them. I have to say, I also have that love-hate relationship with Sarah J. Maas. I think she can write some really good characters. It's just that how things often come together, and especially when she starts writing romance scenes, it kind of goes off the tracks. And then there are a couple of books that, you know when you go to a bookstore regularly, like I go to my local bookstore like once or twice a month, and I don't always pick something up, but I always like walk around the tables, and sometimes you just see books that speak to you all the time, and then after a while you still end up taking them home. This is one of them. This is Before the Coffee Gets Cold from Toshigazu Gawaguchi. Is that how you pronounce the name? It's Japanese, so I don't know any Japanese. I hope I didn't butcher that. But Before the Coffee Gets Cold is sort of like a sci-fi kind of whimsical kind of story, it seems, where there's a cafe with cats and you can time travel and you need to come back before your cup of coffee gets cold. So it's like other dimensions and time travel and like alternate universes. And it's really short. So this just intrigued me, and I've been sort of trying to build my sci-fi collection a little bit more, just so I can start reading some things, and this is definitely, I think, a fun one. Another recommendation from a friend of mine was Richard Osman's The Thursday Murder Club. This one I've already read, and I quite enjoyed it. Not enough for me to be picking up the rest in the series, but it's really, really funny. If you like dry, witty English humor, you're going to love these books. Richard Osman is well, he was on TV. He was one of not the main presenter, but sort of the fact checker of a show called Pointless. So I know his face and I've seen him around, you could say. And he started writing novels, and he's now so successful at it that he's actually stopped doing the TV show, I believe. But yeah, The Thursday Murder Club is about a couple of people who live in this elderly home enclave. Like, it's not just an elderly home, it's like this little village that they've built for old people. And these people all have an apartment there. And on Thursdays, they solve unsolved murders. I believe one of them is a police officer, or used to be a police officer. They're all retired, of course. And then you just have a bunch of these oldies that are like trying to solve murders, and then a murder actually happens, and then they start solving that, of course. And then this is a booktube sort of recommendation. This is Susanna Clarke's Piranesi. And just recently, like in the past year or so, I started watching a booktuber from the UK. His name is Jack. I don't remember his YouTube handle, but he's very sort of influential in the booktube community, it seems. He kept popping up in my recommendations, and this was one of his favorite books that he read last year. It's the Women's Prize for Fiction winner of 2021 as well, and this is just one of those things where I'm like, ooh, you know, we've got is it a centaur? I think it is. But it seems to be like mythical retelling, but it's fantasy as well. Like, I'm not really sure how to categorize this. It's, again, pretty short, so I like that. And it just if he says it's good, then, and it's won a prize, and it's staring at me at my bookstore every time. But it was pretty expensive. That's why I didn't pick it up at first. I really waited for it to come out in paperbacks. Then a book that I did pick up because it just looked pretty, Pandora from Susan Stokes Chapman. That's her name. I just love this bird on the cover, and this. Again, it's got Greek mythology in here, but also a mystery at the heart, and just look at those sprayed edges. That's why I wanted to own this. I love me a Greek mythology retelling. I've read quite a few. There are still quite a few on my shelves that I still need to read, but I know I enjoy that trope, so I was hoping that this could be a good one. And then this one I bought to complete the duology, Leigh Bardugo's Rule of Wolves. This is duology set around Nikolai, which is a character in the... Why can't I think of book titles right now? The original Grisha trilogy. He's mainly in the second book. That's where he makes his first appearance. Then he also, I believe, makes an appearance in the other duology, the one about the criminals who are doing a heist. Can't think of those either, what the name is there. But the Rule of Wolves and the one before it, King of Scars, are centered around him, apparently. And the same goes for this book, actually. This is Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This is a second book in a series as well. And I just like having complete series on my shelves, or as complete as possible. It just entices me more to start reading them. I know, it sounds crazy. Of course, if a standalone is just standalone, it's fine. But very often, if people rave about a book series, then I want to own the whole thing, so I can just keep going. Case in point, the Jade City trilogy from Fonda Lee. So many people are saying how this is one of the best fantasy books that's been released in recent years. It's Jade City, Jade War, and Jade Legacy. Those are the three books in this series. I don't know much about it, but it's sort of like feuding families over jade. That's a commodity in this world, I think. So it's sort of giving me mafia kind of vibes, and a bit of Romeo and Juliet, you know, that sort of like one family versus another kind of thing. So I think I like that. I like when things are about like criminals and crimes and people who are like hiding in the shadows kind of thing. So I think I might like it from what I've heard of it. I'm not sure about the writing style, of course. I haven't read these yet, but yeah, these just really sounded like it might be something up my street when I started hearing about this series. Then there is also a couple series ongoing that I'm sort of caught up with that, you know, release books almost once a year, it seems. And one of them is Oscar the Muriel's, what are they called? I can't remember the names. Oh, Frey and McGray. Those are the last names of the two main characters. And this is the latest one in that series, The Dance of the Serpents. In case you don't know what the series is about, it's about two police officers in Edinburgh in the Victorian times, and every case they solve seems to have like a paranormal sort of mystery at its root, but then then the case is always resolved with like it actually being people who are doing these things. But yeah, they're trying to solve murders. One of them is very much into the occult and the paranormal and believes all these things, and the other guy is a little bit more cynical, also a little less experienced as a police officer, and they come from completely different walks of life. Well, not really, but their outlooks on life are very different. So you get this sort of like Holmes versus Watson kind of banter. So it's like detectives, it's Victorian era, so we've got a historical setting, we've got some mystery, we've got some thriller, we've got some paranormal, almost fantasy kind of stuff. It really harps on about like folklore and like popular beliefs, but it also very much taps into scientific advances of the day, because very often the explanation for the cases that are being solved are recent scientific discoveries, as in the Victorian era, recent discoveries. And it's just great how it's very much infused with history, and I really like these books. Then we have this one. This one I just picked up because it made a lot of like best of lists, I think in 2021 or 2020. This is Grady Hendrix's The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. So apparently this is about a book club, and then a vampire joins them. That's, I believe, the premise, if I'm not mistaken. So it seems a bit absurd, but also like, you know, it's like comedy, but also a bit serious at the same time. And apparently it does involve vampires as well. So you couldn't make me any happier. I already told you that I like having complete series on my shelf, and Libra Brays, The Diviners, was one of those series where I've had the first book for ages, but I didn't own the rest. The thing I hate the most about this is that there's just no series available right now from these books that have the same covers. So it kind of bugs me. The first book looks completely different to the others. What I know of this is that it's set in the 1920s, so we've got a historical setting. I believe New York, so it's like speakeasies and Charleston music in the Jazz Age. I live for that area and time for sure, but it also has some paranormal things going on. I'm not exactly what, I'm not sure what it's exactly about, but that's the blurb, and I was just like, if I'm gonna read that first book, I need to read the others too. So now we have a stack of more recent purchases. I bought Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. I bought this because Reagan from Peru's Project really loves this. It's one of her all-time favorites, and she really describes this as this like political tale that spans several centuries, I believe, and we follow this one family across time, and it seems to like going back and forth in time. And I believe it's set in Korea as well. I've never really read anything like that, so I think this can be a really great multi-generational overview. It's definitely one that, with the typeset and how many pages this is, it's going to take a bit of a long time to read, I'm sure. It's a chunky one. I almost started reading this as an audiobook, but then I was like, it's going to be quicker for me to read it on the page. I already own the first book in this trilogy, which is, I believe, called A Winter's Tale, and I picked up book 2 and 3. This is by Christelle Dabo, and this is book 3, The Memory of Babel, and this is The Missing of Claire de Lune. This is apparently sort of like a Harry Potter Hogwarts kind of setting where it's like a school for magic. That's the only thing I really know about it, but these covers are really, really stunning. And like I said, I already own the first book, so that's why I need to own books 2 and 3, so I have the complete set. I'm not sure if it's complete though. I'm not sure if there's any more books coming out. Then I've never read this. Donna Tartt's The Secret History. This is one of those books that I saw sitting on a shelf back when I still worked at my local library as a teenager all the time, but I didn't really know what it was about. And I've had some Donna Tartt on my shelves, which I've decluttered over time because I wasn't reading it. I think I actually owned The Goldfinch at some point. I actually may have owned this before in like a used library copy that they had written off. But yeah, this is just one of those books where I'm like, now that I'm hearing more and more about what this book is about, and then it's like this like group of friends, and then, you know, everything goes wrong. It sort of reminds me a bit of what I know of The Magicians, which is also like this group of friends in school, and this is more about like a murder mystery, of course. But yeah, this sounds good. Now that I know what it's about, I think I might like it. And then this is the most recent hype that I picked up on, Olivia Blake's The Atlas Six. Again, a group of 6 people that do a heist or something like that. 6 magicians. I think there's a bit of competition between these magicians as well. The guy at the bookstore was like, it's actually really good, you might enjoy that. So I went with it. That's all I can say. A book I've read, The Library of the Dead by T.L. Huchu. This is a great book. This is actually the first book in a series as well. I believe the second book has just come out, if I'm not mistaken. It's about a teenager in a dystopian Edinburgh setting. So it's set in the future. Edinburgh is very different. There are no cars anymore. And it's sort of like the world itself, like the vibe I get from it is very sort of Ready Player One, where like people have like lived in these slums and whatnot, but there are ghosts, and this girl can talk to the ghosts, and she is enlisted by a ghost to solve a mystery of a boy who's gone missing. And she's a really witty teenager who tries to fend for herself, and it's actually a really good read. I really liked how snarky she was. She wasn't perfect, and I really liked the setting. It really draws on, is it, what culture was it again? Zimbabwean magic. So it's really, really great. It really builds the story very well. It's sort of borderline YA adult fantasy, I feel, because the character is a teenager, but I feel that she is dealing with a lot of like adult things. So it's sort of like that nice bridge. If you're like going from YA fantasy into adult fantasy, I think you might like this one. Another random bookstore pick that I haven't read yet because it's very chunky. This is Mordu by Alex Phoebe. I hope you say that. That's how you say it. And the blurb says, God is dead. His corpse is hidden in the catacombs between Mordu. I didn't really read anything else. I think it's sort of like this like Renaissance kind of setting. That's what I'm getting from the cover, like medieval, early modern sort of period. It's a fantasy book, and I saw it and I thought the cover was lovely, and that's why I picked it up. And this is another random bookstore pick, Garth Nix's The Left-Handed Booksellers of London. So Garth Nix is actually an author who I've been meaning to pick up for so long. He's done some series that some OG booktubers that I used to follow really like raved about, and then I spotted this and I was like, it's about a bookstore, it's about London, and it's about magic. Sign me up. But yeah, what it's really about? No clue. No clue. This is another one of those, it made so many end of the year lists for so many people, and that's why I picked it up. The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. Sounds really great. I believe it's more like magical realism, whimsical sort of magic kind of stuff. So not like hardcore fantasy, but I think it can be a good read. And then I didn't know that V.E. Schwab had a new book out when I was at the drugstore. I talk about makeup way too often. At the bookstore, I was actually there to pick up another book. I believe it was the Sarah J. Maas one. But then I spotted this as well. I was like, oh, sounds like her take on the fall of the House of Usher, so I might like it. It's like about an old, seemingly haunted house, and someone starts to live there, and things kind of go wrong from there. So yeah, it's called Gallant. I hadn't heard anything about this, and I just saw it in my bookstore. I was like, might as well pick it up. This I've read, of course, because I read Ben Aronovich's books the minute they come out. Amongst Our Weapons is the latest installment in the Peter Grant series that he's writing. This is urban fantasy, and in this one, there is a heist in the diamond cellars in London, and he has to solve it. And of course, there's mystery involved. I don't remember exactly anymore what happens. These are just like, if you love watching action movies, you'll like these kind of books because they're just really easy to digest and just a lot happens. It's just action-packed. We get witty banter, and I just like this story a lot. I really like this series. It's one of my favorite fantasy series. A box set that had been on my wish list for a while by Joe Abercrombie. This is the first Law trilogy, and this is quoted as like being one of the best fantasy series of all time. I'd like to try it. Continuing on from, I already owned the first book, so I needed to own the others. The Poppy War trilogy from, R.F. Kuang. This is the Dragon Republic and the Burning God, so I want to read that. This is another series that I just sort of keep like buying because I've read most of them. This is Genevieve Cogman's The Invisible Library series, and this is the Untold Story. This is like the 10th book in this series, and I think I'm one book behind. I believe these come out once a year in December. That seems to be like the turnover rate. It's about a librarian who has to go travel to different realms, and on the way she meets fairies who cause chaos and dragons who love structure and order, and her apprentice, who she's in love with, is a dragon. So it's complicated. It's complicated. And then in one of the worlds where she resides, which is like a steampunky version of Victorian London, there she meets a character that very much resembles Sherlock Holmes, who starts helping her out on her quests. Everything revolves around books here as well. It's great. Then we have, again, something a little bit more literary. We have Ocean Vuong. On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. And this, again, I just spotted it at my local bookstore time and time again. But then I started hearing people raving about this as well as being like a great young author, new voice in the literary community. So I thought I could pick it up and read it. And this, I believe, is historical fiction, like Second World War, I think. Sarah Winman's Still Life. Again, a gorgeous, gorgeous book, just the way it looks, which is why it stood out to me. But this is, again, someone on BookTube who I sometimes watch. I don't watch him all the time. I've forgotten his BookTube handle as well. Like, this is what... I've just been out of the loop, you guys, but he said it was one of his favorite books of 2021, and that's why I picked it up. Then another hyped up book, If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. Again, this sounds like really dark and grungy, and I love those kind of things, but that's pretty much all I know. Again, something I just saw at the bookstore and was like, I'd like that. And then finally, these are books I've read 4 of these. This I actually picked up for free at my little, like, there's this like little free library in the park near my house, and there I picked up this. By Gyasi, The Transcendent Kingdom. I mean, again, the cover looks lovely, and this sounds like one of those books that I feel just tells an important story. So I don't know why this ended up in this little library there. I've left books there myself as well. When I did a declutter I think it's been almost 2 years ago that I did that, but I did leave some books there myself, and this is the first time I've actually picked something up from it. Then we have James S.A. Corey, Leviathan Wakes. This is the book number 1 in the Expanse series. This is apparently, is it a TV series on Amazon, I believe? Amazon Prime. So I've had a lot of friends telling me how much they love the TV series. This apparently is space opera, which is apparently a category within sci-fi that a lot of people seem to enjoy. So I thought I could give it a try and just picked up the first book just to see. And then for the final books that I've actually read, they're all in Dutch. So unless you know Dutch, you're not going to be able to read it. I actually bought this book, and then I got one book for free and another one I picked up. This is laguel, Ik ga leven. And this is a book about a Turkish, like a Dutch-Turkish girl who grows up in a very conservative family, and sort of how that affects her. The author has based a lot of what's in the book on her own experiences, which has caused her a bit of trouble because she's now receiving death threats and all that, because some people are very, well, dissatisfied with how she represents their community, you could say. I bought it during Dutch Book Week, and when you buy a book during Dutch Book Week, you buy a Dutch book, you get a free book. And this year, it was Ilya Leonard Pfeiffer's Monterro, Mon Amour. And this was okay. It's like a short story. And it's about a woman who tries to, who travels to Italy to try and find herself after she's going through a divorce, I believe. And then she gets stuck there during the pandemic. And then during that week, they also have another author sort of writing some sort of like essay or something. But this year it was also again short stories called Het Vacant Fort by Marieke Lucas Reineveld. And she is a Dutch author that I quite enjoy. In fact, if you're going to be watching my 2021, like the books I read last year, because I haven't updated you on that, you'll find that I read one of her other books. And she is a Dutch author who is very much raved about in Dutch literary press. And then last but not least, I read a non-fiction book. This is De Zeven Vinkjes by Joris Luijendijk. And this book is a non-fiction book about how he discovered that he is a white man who therefore has a lot of advantages in life because he's privileged, and sort of about if you don't have these 7 markers in your life, how you're being held back. So Zeven Vinkjes, 7 markers. And then there's one more book I bought, but I already read it and I lent it to someone, which is why I was almost forgetting to tell you about it. But it's Food Isn't Medicine by Joshua Woolridge. He's a doctor in the UK, I believe. And it's sort of like, it takes like health at every size, but he kind of takes his experience as a doctor and his knowledge of nutrition and sort of fuses those two worlds together about how, you know, people can only be blamed for a certain part, and that like healthcare should focus on other things than just people like not having the right weight, and how that can be an issue. Sure, it can be an issue, but it's also about like what do you then eat and all that. So this was actually a really good one. I quite enjoyed it. So yeah, those were all of the books that I bought in, I don't know, a year and a half because I haven't been on here for a while and I just thought I could show you everything. I don't buy these things in one go, right? I like buy like 4 or 5 books at a time. Like once a year I do like a good huge giant bookshop that I just update the shelves with all of the things that I feel are missing. So that's part of this as well. Probably times 2. And also in 2021, because I felt I wasn't reading that much, I felt I wasn't allowed to buy that many books. But then as I started reading more this year, it's really rekindled the fire. And that's why we now have a lot of new things to start reading. And now I really need to start reading those things. But as you'll see in an upcoming video that I will post about what I've read so far in 2022, you'll see that a lot of books I'm showing you that I say I've read, I purchased them this year, but I also read them straight away. So I feel I'm doing a little bit better there than I have in other years. I hope you are also glad I'm back. I'm glad to be back on this channel, and I hope you'd like to stay tuned for more. I will be posting once a week, at least this month, and we'll see how it goes from here. If you have any videos idea that I can do on this channel as well, just let me know. And then I hope you'd like to stay tuned for more and see you in my next video. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.